Hello and welcome. I'm Dre.
I'm John.
And this is Voices in the Dark. And I keep messing this up. You look very unhappy with me, so do you want to say the tagline?
I'm not unhappy with you. I think it might just be the American twang in your accent that's like, we're always learning how to human. I think maybe this is Voices in the Dark, and we are learning how to human.
Okay.
So you don't have to.
Should I try a different accent each time?
Maybe. What about an Italian accent?
No, I don't like that one.
Oh.
I'm not fond of the Italian accent in English.
Could you say learning how to human in Italian?
I'd have to think about it, but yes, like right now, like I'm podcasting right now. My brain is in a different gear. I would have to.
Okay, well we can work it out and come up with a different language that we can. Well, in Italian, not butcher, but in future languages, butcher. Welcome, everyone. This is the next part of the Modern Stoic. Which episode are we on now?
We're on the 14th episode of the series.
14th episode. Okay, this one is a letter which is titled On Practising What You Preach. And this is a pretty cool one. Definitely ties in with some of the laws of power that we spoke about in our previous series. This one is about why actions speak louder than words, the benefits of taking action for mental health, why philosophy is about life and not about libraries, and how to find true peace within as you seek to better yourself.
Wow.
A lot of our favorite themes there.
Yeah, pretty cool.
I quite like libraries, but I definitely wouldn't want to live in one.
No, I think I would become very weird if I did.
Become? Okay.
Weirder.
Moving on. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the show. I will try and be brief with our introductory elements, but you can help us a lot to embiggen this thing by giving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. It makes us smile, for one thing, and it also means when we're trying to hit up guests and get further opportunities to create cool content, people look at that and go, oh, this is a cool thing. I'll do the cool thing. Maybe it should be like that on dating apps. Like, this is a cool person. Look at their rating.
It would be easily abused by angry exes.
Yeah,
if
it
there was
would.
a rating system.
It would be solely abused by angry exes.
Yeah. The only ratings you'd get.
Just 1 or 5-star reviews. And we are on the socials too. We're on Instagram now at vinthed.pod. Damn that fucking .pod. And Twitter and Facebook at vinthd, where we post things, we talk to you. People occasionally have meltdowns. I love it.
Yeah, there's some really odd. I mean, generally the kind of people that write on the internet, there's something wrong with them. People that leave comments and things. By majority, I don't know, it just seems to be that the kind of people that are a bit weird are also courageous enough to write down and hit send. I think a lot of people maybe write something or think, oh, maybe I shouldn't. And those are the people we'd love to hear from.
So be the other kind of courageous. The show notes, as usual, will be on voicesinthedark.world, and where you can also now see a link through to YouTube that we are being filmed in beautiful high definition.
Yes.
Didn't
so
put my
sexy.
makeup on.
No.
Oops.
Yeah.
Do I look good?
Pretty good.
Do I smell good?
Well, I don't have a microphone for that, so I think we're good.
Okay, then we can proceed. Big shout out to our Patreon supporters, as always. We're currently developing some extra content streams for you guys. Just for you. Filmed a sexy special episode just the other day that we put out. And if you want to get access to that and help us really directly grow the show, become a patron of the arts, go to patreon.com/vinthd. There's various rewards and things. You can sign up. You can cancel anytime. Please don't. Don't cancel. Don't cancel anytime.
But at least wait until the first of the month, because the way Patreon works is if you subscribed right now, we wouldn't get any money until the 1st of February. So don't think, oh, well, they got 1 month out of me and then cancel, because we wouldn't have gotten anything. Wait at least until one changeover, please.
That would be pleasant. We would appreciate it, instead of like dangling the possibility.
Otherwise, you have no right to be virtue signaling about it. Like you haven't actually done it.
Yeah, you should be right before you virtue signal. And that's our little bundle of things wrapped up, I think. And I suppose now we talk about Seneca.
Yeah, I like this one. I mean, it kind of flows into one of the few things that I have on my pretty permanent rules of my own moral code.
Okay, which is?
Like, to do what I say, if I promise something, to follow through on it, and to, you know, like, not expect something from other people that I'm not willing to do myself. You know,
my mind just went dirty immediately. You can expect blowjobs, but you're prepared to give them.
Wait.
It just went dark quickly.
No, I'm just thinking how that would work in a heterosexual couple. You mean going down, or do I mean that if I want a blowjob from a girl, I have to go out and give blowjob to other guys?
I think you do. I think this is a core problem of heterosexuality. It's just not even enough. It's not balanced. Anyway, promises. Seneca begins by saying, "Let wisdom sink into your soul and test your progress, not by mere speech or writings, but by stoutness of heart and decrease of desire. Prove your words by your deeds." So this takes us back to the Game of Thrones saying, words are wind. And also law of power number 9, win through your actions, never through argument.
Yeah, check out that episode. We talk about it quite at length.
Yeah, I think this is somewhat ironic for a philosopher to say, like, win through actions and not through argument. But on the other hand, Stoicism isn't about just sitting there stoically with a small s. It is about living these ideals. So Seneca continues, "Philosophy teaches us to act, not to speak. It exacts of every man that he should live according to his own standards, that his life should not be out of harmony with his words, and that, further, his inner life should be of one hue and not out of harmony with all his activities. This, I say, is the highest duty and the highest proof of wisdom."
Congruence. I hate when people misuse that word. And not necessarily, some people misuse it by not understanding what it means and using it incorrectly, but I hate when it gets used as a marketing term.
Okay.
Like, you know.
Well, tell me more. What does it mean, and how are people misusing it?
Oh, right. So congruence means I hate having to give definitions in case I get them wrong. I get panic and then my mind goes blank.
A consistency.
Yeah. So like a level of consistency between the internal and the external world, you know, meaning your mind and the outside, between your actions and your, you know, words, between all aspects of who you are. Like you can, you know, be super nice on the outside, but inside you're wishing everybody dead. That's not congruence. Or vice versa, you know, being terrible on the outside for whatever reason, but on the inside, you know, you're just a kind person that somehow has gone out. That would be, you know, incongruence there. But it's one of those things that's been co-opted by internet marketers, you know, and they throw it at you with other words such as, you know, gratitude, or, you know,
hashtag that.
Yes. Or vulnerability. It's become a buzzword for people trying to sell in the era of race to most authentic.
More authentic than you, man. Fuck this.
And when it's being used at me, I just tune out.
I mean, it's not the concept itself or the principle itself is the problem. It's just that when it's overused, when everyone's talking about being authentic, it doesn't feel very meaningful anymore, especially when the people who are using it are just using it as a tool.
Yeah, and there's also something weird about it when it's intentional matchup of things in order to be more successful or sell, as opposed to you being congruent just because you are. Yeah. There's an artificiosity that is somehow apparent.
Okay, like you paused after saying it like you wanted points. Is that a word?
Ding, 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 ding.
I guess it's a word. Why is it different from artificiality?
Not sure.
Turning into a dictionary episode. Let's not do this. So, yes, I made a note about congruity later, so maybe I'll come back to that theme. I think from the quote that I just read out, a key point for me is philosophy is for life, and people get it wrong if they just go and sit in the library and never come out of it, which is definitely what I see happen with people studying philosophy and then teaching philosophy. You're like, well, what life experiences are you really drawing on from your 12-hour days in the library? You know, at a certain point, people only end up talking within the horizon of their own experience. In fact, it's hard to escape that except by reading and learning about other things. But then you could read a whole book about how to shoot arrows, but you wouldn't then be able to do it unless you went and tried and practiced. So I was thinking of Nietzsche in this regard, who is much more into let's go and put this stuff into practice and try and live by it intensely. And his physical health, say, came into that a big part for him, not just because he was often very ill, but because he believed you needed to be robust in your body as well as in your mind. Whereas I think a lot of people who see that who feel that their strength is in their mind, then neglect their body and do just sit in the library the whole time trying to feel superior.
Yeah, it's very common. And it's also very common for someone who's a bit feebly to think that somehow their mind's their strength, when really it's just that their body's their weakness.
I was an aberration on the conference circuit, like history conferences, because I work out.
Yeah, it's not common. And it's funny enough, people want to pigeonhole you as one or the other. It's as if society does not accept the idea of both being things that a modern person should do at the same time, whereas the ancients were very clear that, you couldn't have one without the other.
And this is the picture in part of the Renaissance man.
The Renaissance man, or even before that, the philosopher kings, and the sort of the leaders of the Roman Empire, the Roman Republic, or before that, sort of Greek, heroes and so on. Like you were supposed. I mean, obviously there was people that were one way or another in the myths, if you read them. But Ulysses or Odysseus, however you want to call him, was known for his brains. But he competed very effectively, according to the story, in the sort of games that they played in honor of the death of Patroclus, I think, something like that. Anyway, he won. He distinguished himself very well against people that were larger and stronger than him in theory. But he could compete, even though he was known for his brain. These days, if you made a movie, Odysseus would have glasses and not be able. There'll be a joke about how feebly he is, whereas Ajax or Achilles would be complete dumbasses.
Ajax, yeah. I don't think, I think I always had quietly suspected, but hadn't actually put it together, the Ulysses and Odysseus are the same character. I don't know why they've got different names. I have to look that up.
One's the Roman name, one's the Greek name.
Oh, you sold it all for me. I don't have to do any work.
Boom.
I love podcasts. Just get the information. So the key question then about philosophy that Seneca's posing, or causes us to pose, is what are you learning this for? All this stuff. But I think it's a perfectly legitimate answer to say to improve myself, but don't forget that the knock-on effect, and one of the reasons to do the improving of yourself, is that you're then better in the world and with other people. And that's also true of meditation, which sometimes people can see as very solitary and self-involved, and some people even think is selfish. In fact, it can feel that way if you go and say, I'm going to go away to a retreat or something to work on myself. There can be a lot of pushback from people going, well, that's very self-indulgent. What about the people that need you? Well, if you bear in mind when you're doing this, and there's a strong emphasis in most meditation teaching that I've come across, that the investment in yourself will radiate outwards positively, and you're imagining in the process of how this is good for you that you're going to be able to be a better person around the people that you care about.
Yeah, and it's something that you wouldn't at least I wouldn't say to my loved ones, and you wouldn't certainly think of a machine that needed maintenance. I'm not going to take the car to the mechanic. I have to drive it.
Yeah, but it is really like that, and yet I think it triggers fear for some people if there's the possibility of change, if their partner is off to go do something for themselves. Why aren't you doing something for me? Well, you are also doing something for them.
It's interesting. It makes me think that a lot of people are somehow maybe subconsciously aware that their partner is only with them because they are not as good as they could be, and if they achieve their true potential, they'd be too good for them.
It could be the fear. It could be the fear. And if you start to follow this tangent a bit more, start making other people's actions a statement about you, that's a very different toxic path to go down. I remember in an ungood relationship, because I wanted to go away for a week or two to just focus on writing, that was interpreted as, oh, so I'm a problem and you want to be away from me. Like, well, you could see it that way, but my motivation is not to be away from you. My motivation is to be on my own. And there is an important difference there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's the weird mental gymnastics people do. Like, oh, it's all about, like, it's not about, that's the thing. Everybody, his own internal experience, it's all about them. Which means, by definition, that anything someone does, it's not all about you. It's something they've done purely out of themselves. There's the same thing that I think there's a famous saying, I can't remember who said it, which is, people are not out to get you. People are out for themselves. And, I mean, the end result, which this is another example of the why, what, how, like how it, sometimes the motivation has no... It doesn't really matter in the end, because the end result's the same. You know, you get your wallet taken and maybe stabbed in the kidney. You know, it's like, oh, like the universe is out to get me. No, that guy wanted some money, you know, to buy some drugs or to feed his kids, whichever. You know, maybe both. But the end result is the same.
The end result's the same, but the heart of the Stoic philosophy we're trying to get into is you can definitely find healthier, more balanced ways to understand that result.
Sure, but it reminds me of when my bike was stolen when I was a little kid. We left it in the boot of a car. It was a kid's bike. Okay, so someone stole a bike for an 8-year-old.
Well, we don't know anyone who has stolen a child's scooter in this very neighborhood, do we?
Wasn't me.
It wasn't you.
Anyway, but my mom tried to make me feel better by saying, "Oh, maybe it was a poor father that couldn't afford a bike for his son, and he stole it because that's the only way he could give it to him." And I remember thinking, I don't remember how old I was. I remember thinking, I don't give a shit.
Well, you don't have to give a shit. I guess that the possible benefit in just coming to terms with something that has happened that is out of your control is to go, okay, well, it's out of my control. And one way to maybe feel better about it is to imagine that it wasn't aimed to hurt you. It had a different aim in mind.
I don't know.
There's various degrees of that.
I think if you're really going to test your Stoic self, you should assume the worst. The bike was stolen to commit genocide, and if only you'd put it away so it couldn't be stolen, you would have saved mankind. Can you handle that?
I'm just trying to imagine how much pedaling you'd have to do to commit genocide from a bicycle. Yeah, I think it's a tricky one. I think I find it easier to talk about in principle than to really practice necessarily, because it's very hard to, if something's taken away from you in that way, to not feel angry and pissed off, because there is no justice in it. But I guess the anger comes from feeling that there should be justice in it, but there ain't gonna be. That's fate, I guess, as Seneca talks about it, just happenings, things that happen.
Yeah. I think for me a healthier approach is, oh well, shit happens, as opposed to, oh, maybe this is gonna has some kind of positive or non as horrible as my mind could make it impact or reason. Like I don't need that. Like I don't need that from the universe.
I think it can be possible to kind of have both at the same time. Like Jamie dropped his brand new unused yoga mat on the way to the airport a while ago, and I tried to find it, like retracing the steps and asking in the shops and so on, but it was gone. So somebody got a brand new yoga mat, and I think he even, I can speak for myself, I simultaneously think, well, I hope someone is doing some yoga and doing something good with their lives and they feel good about this mat, and at the same time, you're a dick. But like, what about the times where you've maybe there's a £20 note lying on the ground or something, some object that seems to be like lost, abandoned. You're like, well, I don't know what to do with this or how to get. So maybe you could go to the extra effort of handing it in a local shop and assume that they might hold it and do it. Or maybe you just go, well, Lady Luck has smiled on me today.
Just take it. I think I've done that before with like a 10 or 20 or something. Just took it.
Well, I've definitely done it with money.
Yeah.
Well,
certainly as a kid.
Yeah, but what's the point of not doing that with money? Because when it's not just an object that clearly belongs to somebody, if you're going to give it to a shop, they're going to put it in the till. And if they're not, who are they going to believe? Like, how many creases were on the £20 note? So I know it was yours.
Oh, I was gonna say something, but that last bit took it out of my mind.
It's because I blew your fucking mind.
Yeah.
Gone. Was it about yoga?
I was gonna ask you if I was talking to you about this a few months ago or someone else, that if I could have a little button which would tell me where an object that I lost or was stolen was at the time that like it got dropped or lost or whatever happened to it, or if it got taken out of my pocket, whatever. Like to know where it was for sure, but that you then could never get it again.
Ooh.
How long would I wait before touching that button?
Depends on the object.
I would definitely use it. I'd be the kind of person that would use it. Like, so like, oh, maybe I'll find it someday. I'd be like, no, I lost my wallet. It's been 2 days. I don't know where it is. It was under your pillow. Oh.
No. And then it's gone. Like it vanishes.
Yeah. But I would use that.
But if you use the button and then you're like, like this person down the street, or you somehow knew that it was some total dick who'd taken it, like you couldn't get the object back, but you could go and kill them. There's a benefit.
So here's a plus.
I don't think any of this is very stoic. So the letter continues on. There was a connection with the last quote, so to remind ourselves a little bit of that, it's about the acting and trying to be in congruence. And Seneca, well, it sounds difficult, and Seneca thankfully admits that. He says, "It is indeed a hard undertaking, and I do not say that the philosopher can always keep the same pace, but he can always travel the same path." So I quite like this image, or I'm going to play with it a little bit anyway, that we can choose to walk along a certain road, and even if our destination is eluding us for the time being, and we always waver, there's always some detours along the way, but if we have a compass, maybe a better image than the road, we can know we're trying to head in the right direction at least. I quite like that it's not just, I think often if we think now I'm going to travel this good path, we then can be very hard on ourselves if we're not 100% on it all the time.
Yeah. It's a funny thing. We're our own worst enemy. I don't think there's anyone who has maybe some people are completely like nice to themselves. Like I'd love to talk to them and see what they're like. But I find most people that I interact with are usually quite mean to themselves, and they're quick to jump to conclusions when they wouldn't for others.
Yeah. And
it's just this general attitude. It's like, oh, I set out to fill out a journal every day and I failed.
Did you?
And I did. Yeah, but I don't think that to myself. Like, I'm not the kind of person that kind of goes down those paths too often. Mm-hmm. It's becoming more frequent with old age.
Old age.
But yeah, there's a lot of people that would be quite punishing to themselves, or if something was happening that they associate with another darker period of their life, they'll be like, oh, it's about to happen again. I'm about to, not be able to hold down a job, or I'm about to, lose my romantic relationships because when I was in this place before, I wasn't, nice enough to keep my husband around, like something, those kinds of things. And you're kind of like, well, don't jump to conclusions, first of all. And secondly, why are you so mean to yourself?
Yeah, imagine, I think I've said it before, imagine saying those things to a friend, someone you cared about. You'd be kind of horrified if you spoke to them that way.
Yeah, to a 3-year-old.
Well, I don't care.
No, but it'd be funny.
Oh, then it would be funny.
I would like to make it as a skit. You lost your toy again.
You stupid fuck. What's wrong with you?
Oh dear, I think I've heard people talk like that to children sometimes.
Yeah, I don't think it actually goes well.
No.
It might turn from a skit into just like the reality of being in the supermarket.
Would you definitely get letters by people who had that as a child that don't get that it was a skit? They would think you're making fun of them.
Or maybe they'd be like, great parenting. I'm glad to see it on screen. Anyway, let's not talk about kids. They're so annoying.
It's annoying and sexy.
Yeah, that's the biggest cause of pedophilia, sexy kids. Seneca says that we have to put this into practice in daily life. Not be one thing at home and another thing in public. And he gives the example that if you strut around in all your finery in public while claiming to be to yourself and maybe to your closer circle to be living a restrained life of reflection and so forth, then it's a sign of an unbalanced mind.
See, I read that and I thought, does he mean the other way around? Because to me, that just shows a clever 48 Laws of Power abiding person, because he's showing, or like, maybe displaying one thing to please the populace or to look impressive, but then actually he doesn't believe it himself. Whereas the other way around, someone that pretend, well, also that could be clever as well, but someone that is talking about how frugal they are, but secretly they're so super overindulging in secret, that's more likely for me to trigger the thought that Seneca had.
Well, I think that it depends whether or not you're doing it consciously. I think the thing that Seneca is trying to get at is, are you lying to yourself?
Oh, right.
Are you being incongruent but ignoring it?
That was my coccyx clicking.
I don't know if that was picked up on the mics.
Okay. I could have just...
Should a coccyx click?
Probably not.
Okay. Are you going to be able to move after this?
We'll see.
Okay, well, we'll finish this. Show must go on. Jay's paralyzed. I had a good point. Yes, congruity matters most if in the terms of are you actually self-aware? Because mostly I think the incongruity that happens is when people are lying to themselves. Like if you're choosing to be different in one situation to another, perhaps Seneca would just criticize that, I don't know, then you're doing it consciously. It's like when we were talking in the previous episode about consciously choosing hardship is not the same as saying, I have to live under hardship.
Yeah.
And so that the how, again, is the more important thing than the what, necessarily. And we always... the issue of congruity and also aligning with other social dynamics that you're in is important. But as part of that, we shouldn't forget that we all have different aspects to ourselves. So the fact that you are more one way with some people and more one way with another doesn't mean that you're incongruent. There's also there's a whole spectrum of different aspects of yourself.
That's another breakdown in a useful tool or framework. When you start to it all comes down to fetishizing ideas. You're like, congruence is so important. Oh, and then you fetishize congruence as a concept, and then you kind of punish yourself or others for not being congruent. And you're focusing everything and you're filtering everything through it, rather than going, oh, this is a useful pencil to draw with. I might use it to do a pencil drawing instead of trying to make it a nail, trying to put it in your computer hard drive.
And then when it goes the other way, it's back to what we were saying, that, so you're a guy who works out. It's not congruent that you also read philosophy. Fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. That it becomes a weapon against yourself and others, then it's stupid.
I think this is, to repeat, it's about whether or not you're doing this consciously, or are you someone who thinks that you're a good person, but you're also constantly lying to everybody around you and you don't join the dots.
I'm going to use a different word. I'm going to ban congruence.
Okay, vetoed.
I'm going to say dissonance.
Okay, I like that.
I like to think of doing things properly or well according to your soul as harmony. And there's more than one possible sound or wave or thing that's happening, or voice. There's voices in the dark. But they can work together. Even ones that are different can harmonize. Chords. Basically, life is about playing the right chords. And if you're, a C, maybe you need to play this chord and this chord in terms of your the way you behave or the way you think. Whereas something that it's not right for you would just clang. It would just not sound nice.
That's interesting. And then I think if you're a master of the own key in which you play, then even if you encounter people who are quite different, you have enough musical skill to be able to bring something interesting out of that rather than just clashing and awful. Because some of the most inventive and coolest sounds in music come from the unexpected moments where, that's just not simply a major chord. There's something different going on in there. But it doesn't have to be bad at all. It can be like, wow, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, and and it changes the nature of the music. I've heard famous songs played in minor key instead of major, or major instead of minor.
Did you see "Smells Like Teen Spirit" the other day? Someone did that whole song in a major key, and it sounds so like guitar pop.
Yeah,
it's really awful.
I think I've seen that before. Basically implying that Nirvana is just sad pop. Like,
yeah, but it didn't even sound sad, because once the words are in there, it's just like, hey, yeah, entertain us, woo. Yeah, we got to put. I'll try and find it for the notes. We can listen to it afterwards.
Yeah.
It's disturbing.
Funny stuff. But yeah, no, like but it's still melodious. It still harmonizes, under different keys. Dissonance is when it clashes completely. It's wrong. And the only time you hear that in music is like horror movies, when like kind of thing, like those types of situations. They want to intentionally make you uncomfortable. So you could, I guess, choose to be dissonant in a way to intentionally make someone else uncomfortable. That would be one legitimate use of it. But if you're unintentionally dissonant in what you do, then you're probably not being true to yourself, and you're sort of damaging sort of who you are.
I think there's a lot of tension involved, which is something I want to get to in a sec. But before that, I'd also... you do that little swipey thing where you move your fingers and you lose your place, and it's all gone terribly wrong. I got notes, I'm prepared, now it's fucked. The show is over, I'm leaving. You broke your coccyx, I broke my attention. So I think what I was going to say is this dissonance, say, between public and private, or the way you claim you are to the way you actually behave, is also a symptom of not committing. And it's not going all in with something that you actually believe is important. Like maybe it's a diet or something, or a healthy diet. Like you think it, you say it, you talk about it, and you don't do it. Dissonance. Or with a business opportunity, perhaps you're like, oh, okay, I don't feel this is quite right, but I want it to be, so I'm going to jump into it, and then it falls apart because it isn't actually what you want it to be. It doesn't fit with who you are either.
Yeah.
But I think that it's important to say that we can be gentle with ourselves in correcting this course. Don't scream at the 3-year-old when you're trying to find your balance. But this is still, potentially, it's a dynamic of tension. This is what I wanted to say, that if it's tension where the dissonance is so great, something is eventually going to break. If you go through your life claiming to be one thing and yet never actually doing it, I think you're going to have a mental break, or you're going to be shunned by the people around you because they can feel this strange tension. Like the kind of people who are like, burn the gays, burn them all, and they're just banging rent boys covered in cocaine. They're tense, weird people.
Yeah. There's an odd... Well, yeah. Kind of feel sorry... Like, I feel sorry for them and hate them at the same time.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's just this weird incongruence or dissonance in their brain, because they've been told that that thing is really, really bad.
But they love it.
They love it, which then makes them hate themselves, which they don't want to do, so they hate others that are like them, for causing it in them in some way. But also, I was reading quite a lot that potentially those kind of people are probably somewhere on the bisexual spectrum. So they can most of the time choose to be straight, which makes them think that sexuality is a choice.
Oh, yeah, right.
And so, like, what if I'm choosing to be with my wife and bang her once every 3 months? Why can't you?
Because I don't want to?
So maybe the gays are right and bisexuals are the problem.
Is that what bisexuals get a really bad rap?
They do.
Which is very unfair, because I think it's because the people that you just described, and maybe others who go like, oh, I'm gay, but I had an experimental phase, they look at their own experience and think that it's true for everybody else.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same way backwards. Yeah. So a lot of gay people not all the gay friends I've had didn't think this, but I've seen gay people talk about bisexuals as if they just don't know they're gay yet. They're still in that phase where they don't know. Superior
kind of commentary.
I'm guessing that's what happened to them 10 years before. Therefore, it must be how everybody else feels.
Exactly. I think that's how it often is. And it's worth noting that for all that the LGBTQXRY star, everything else community is often remarkably intolerant. In some ways unsurprising. If it's like for a room full of bitchy queens, what did you expect? But it's not that inclusive, and the Bs are often treated like second-class citizens, and the Ts perhaps even worse.
Oh, they get even worse?
It might be changing somewhat, but...
Is it based on where the letter comes in the acronym?
Well, I guess that means the lesbians are the rulers. And that's fine.
Okay.
But
is there a D in there?
For what?
Dre.
Is that your key question? Is there a D in there?
If there was already, then I couldn't take it. But if there isn't one, then
I don't think there is yet.
Done.
I think
that's mine. No one
there's
else's.
like LGBTQ for queer and questioning. And
How
I
does
think,
that not fit into at least one of the other categories?
I think queer could probably cover all of it in many ways, just meaning different to the generally like quote unquote norm of the population, which tends to be
Look, guys,
certain set of genitals.
let's simplify it. We'll just call it wrong.
It's just a big W then. Is that what it's going to be? Oh, but yeah, it's an unfortunate thing that it's not in many ways, I think, a community. It's sort of, and that's because it didn't really start as one. It's more like, oh, you're persecuted and disliked and told that you're weird by the mainstream society as well. Okay, well, I guess we can go to the same bar, but it doesn't mean we got anything much in common other than the fact other people think we're weird.
Well, I was reading that the reason why Pride has a lot of fetish stuff in it was because originally the only places that would accept the gay community were the fetish community.
The fetish community, I believe, though I don't have any experience there yet, are extremely welcoming and friendly and kind people.
No, and it's so I was reading that the reason why the older gay generation doesn't want to clean up Pride is because those were the people that welcomed them.
Yeah.
They don't want to betray them now by making it squeaky clean and all about rainbows and acceptance, because at one point it wasn't, and those people stood by them when no one else would.
And, latex cleans well. It can be squeaky clean and that particular outfit.
It was something I didn't know that I learned in the last week that I thought was really interesting.
These are my vague perspectives at this point, though. I think my clubbing days are probably behind me at this point. Although how you can take the sociological temperature of any community by going to a club is highly questionable. Anyways...
Do I keep sidetracking you?
No, it's okay. This is that's kind of the point, right?
Yeah.
We go blah, 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 and then I go, oh, yes, what about Stoicism? So let's come out of the fetish club and ask Seneca what he thought next. So what did you think about this?
Can we get Jamie to do Seneca in like a fetish club outfit?
Okay, Jamie, you listening?
Draw it for the thumbnail for the post on the website.
So if that is the thumbnail at this point and you're wondering what the fuck is going on, this is what is going on. So when trying to walk the path, correcting our course, having that compass and so on, Seneca certainly allows that we're likely to fall off the wagon from time to time. But wisdom in this context, he sums up this way. What is wisdom? Always desiring the same things and always refusing the same things. You may be excused from adding the little proviso that what you wish should be right, since no man can always be satisfied with the same thing unless it is right. And I think by right, we might think right for you.
So I was trying to untangle that sentence. Is he actually saying that the right, most wise way to be is to be unchanging? Because that would trouble me. But I don't think that's quite what he's trying to say.
He's saying, like, head towards a particular sort of life and morality, way of being, knowing, like, I think this is a good way to live. And I'm going to head in this direction overall, even though it's not necessarily going to go well. So maybe it's about consistency is my reading, that you're trying to go for the things that you know are good for you, avoid the things that are not.
I don't know. That I think that violates... What was the chapter in the 48 Laws of Power with that French dude during the Revolution that survived every single administration by constantly changing his values?
Yes.
I'm more in tune with that guy. Do what works.
Yeah, but
I suppose on an internal level, have your own personal understanding of who you are that no one can take away from you.
That's
but
how
that
I'm reading
doesn't
it.
mirror... Like, that would show maybe dissonance with your actions sometime if you have to fit in to be most effective at what you want in the world that exists around you.
That's true. I was reading it as an internal thing, but then, yeah, there could be dissonance created if at times you have to do different things that somewhat compromise those values. But maybe let's again not think of this as totalizing and think, okay, we've got an inner circle of things that we absolutely won't compromise on. And that's what we could think of in relation to this quote. And then an outer circle, these are the things we think are right, but they're more negotiable.
But, I mean, is there anything that you wouldn't compromise on to save your own life or Jamie's life?
I don't think I would kill someone else.
No? To save your own life?
Depends who they were.
Okay. Okay. Good to know. Interesting.
Would you?
To save myself?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Someone
and
else?
A couple of other people that I love, definitely.
I think it depends on who I was being asked to kill. Like, if it was the Pope, you'd kill him in a second. Even though we got the friendly Pope these days.
Yeah, no, I'm not. And I think it's fun enough to do it as a theoretical questions. Like, if you asked most people on the street, would you die if it meant that 1,000 children would live? Most people would say, of course, I would do that. But if presented with the same situation and told that no one would ever know that they chose different, because there's like, I don't want to be the guy that killed 1,000 children to survive, but if no one would know, how would you behave? And it's an interesting. If anyone tells me they wouldn't at least consider it deep down, and maybe they wouldn't. But I don't trust that person. I think something's fundamentally wrong with them.
In the core of the question that you asked me, I think my mind also didn't just take it, or I have trouble taking it as a self-contained thing. What I thought of is, okay, if I had to kill someone to save Jamie, say, then I don't know if there would be much of a relationship afterwards. He's like, you killed a random person so that I could... That's awful. Now that's kind of on my conscience as well.
Yeah, that's fine. And for me, for the people I truly love, like, for example, my mother would never want to be saved if it meant that I had to kill a 5-year-old. But I probably would.
Okay. But then...
And I know that she would never speak to me afterwards, but I'd be okay with that. I would make my peace with that because I'd want her to live.
Okay. Yeah, it gets pretty complicated pretty quickly. We've had a lot of potential violence in this episode.
I mean, theoretical. I've never been put in that situation. So once again, you can talk all you want, but maybe it doesn't match up with your actions.
Yeah, I'm just glad that someone took away the genocide bike from you. Like, imagine all the shit that you would have done. The death wheels on the sides, machine guns mounted on the turrets. You ring the bell, acid sprays in someone's face. No child should have been given that bike. You need to ask your parents some questions. So Seneca, at this point, returns to his riff on poverty, which was a big theme in the previous episode. But it's also a useful benefit of poverty is possibly determining who are the people you really want in your life that actually care about you. So he says, poverty will keep for you your true and tried friends. You will be rid of the men who were not seeking you for yourself, but for something which you have. Find out who your real friends are when the shit hits the fan.
Yeah, that's hard. Because I bet you it's a very low percentage for most people. And do you really want to know? I mean...
I think I already know.
Yeah, no, you deep down probably do, but most people probably wouldn't. I don't think most people would be most comfortable, especially if they're social extroverts, to find out that the 200 friends they have, only one is an actual friend.
I think, so that could well be true. Like, oh, my Facebook friends, I can't believe they deserted me. I think I might be, and drawing on the GoFundMe experience recently with the amount of people who donated some money there. Yeah,
pretty well.
I actually would, I think, be likely more surprised at how many people would be there for me, because I was really blown away. Okay, it's donating some money rather than, but then, you know, if the other question is, like, if you're broke, are people still your friends? Well, I guess so, yeah.
Did you go through the list of people to see, like, who it was?
Yeah.
Did you find anyone that you like? but I don't even like you.
No, there were thankfully not. Thankfully not.
No surprises from like, but we hate each other. What's wrong with you?
Like, you're trying to laws of power me right now. What do you want? What do you want? So yeah, it doesn't have to be a negative. Potentially, you might have some very pleasant surprises. I think it's the same like if you get a fatal illness. A lot of people just disappear, I hear. And then perhaps some surprising people stay. Maybe the guy you don't want to stay. So this, where is my place? This helps us with being friends with ourselves as well, says Seneca. And this is, it links in closely with Buddhist perspectives. He says, accordingly, let your thoughts, your efforts, your desires help to make you content with your own self and with the goods that spring from yourself. So partly again through the lens of poverty and an awareness that you can't just rely on everybody else, you can see if you can be a friend with yourself and not be dissonant, like yelling at yourself the whole time of being shit, then you put yourself in a position to grow in a healthy way. And it's funny, it's another moment where Stoicism crosses over with Buddhism very closely. One of the great Buddhist teachers, Pema Chodron, talks about how the point of change and development is not to throw away who we are already, but to befriend who we are right now.
I mean, one of the things that at first confused me, and I thought, this is rubbish. And then I thought, well, like, oh, this is kind of interesting and profound, but also slightly annoying, which is all the great thinkers and, you know, people that have imparted wisdom or methods of philosophies, when you read their shit, even when they're supposed to be enemies that like had opposing point of view, when you really drill down and read between the lines of what they were saying, it's the same shit over and over again.
It's not really the case here. He wasn't saying Buddhism sucks.
No. I'm saying that Stoicism and Buddhism, if you look between the lines, very similar. Or, you know, the best aspects of Christianity, if you strip away all the crap, there's a lot of stuff that is also present in Buddhism and other places. Yeah. And all the methods and philosophies that people have come up with, there is some very, very common themes. In fact, you could probably do an AI learning algorithm in Google, or like computer stuff like that, the ones that they use for image software learning, that kind of stuff. But put it towards examining philosophical texts and trying to extract the essence of each and cross-compare it. And the book that would come out afterwards, between all the things...
would be Joseph Campbell's The Hero with 1,000 Faces.
I wasn't going to say that, but sure. I haven't read it.
Well, if not that one, which is more dense, then generally his work is this incredible revelation that all of the mythologies that we have any access to of humanity are kind of saying the same thing through different symbols. It gets broken, he says, like in, say, the organized religions of Christianity or Judaism, because people fixate on the symbol and think that it's real, rather than looking at the fact that it's a symbol for something. And say, like, if you say Jesus didn't die on the cross, oh, heretic. Like, well, no, didn't literally, that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is to talk about acquiescence to the reality of fate and life in the world, and to, as he puts it, participate joyfully in the sorrows of the world. Because the world is full of sorrow and destruction and life eating life, but that's how it is. And so the messages of most of these mythologies, or all of them, is to participate with a smile, knowing that you are part of this system.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. Like, there's common themes that are primal and undeniable, woven through all our stories. And even a business book and self-help books, if you read them, they're all saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And like compared to each other, just in slightly different ways. And they themselves are taken out of philosophies that don't just apply to starting a business, but then feed back into things that Seneca already talked about like 2,000 years ago.
And that's why we're talking about it, because humans, we're obsessed with trying to answer these questions. But I think understanding only really comes when you realize that it's not about the details. It's not about the language that it's Stoicism, it's Buddhism, it's whatever. It's trying to use different paths and different stories to look past the stories to what they're getting at, which is the Tao, the way, life. And as soon as, so Joseph Campbell says, if you try and name it, then it's fucked already, because it exists beyond this everyday life of space and time. You know, the saying from the Tao Te Ching, that the Tao that can be named is not the true Tao. As soon as you put a label on it, you're trying to contain it. It's like trying to get, you take a bucket of water out of a river, and then you look at what's in the bucket to analyze the river. It's not a river anymore.
That's how scientists sample rivers.
Okay, well, you're missing the point intentionally, I feel. You can't learn about what a river is and its flow by taking it out of a bucket, because life and our experience of it is flowing. It's alive. It's ever-changing.
Yeah. Cool. No, I was just making the point that it was an interesting discovery.
I've been reading Joseph Campbell, so you set me off.
Okay.
It was great. I enjoyed myself. I don't know if anyone else did. He says, quoting someone else, Durkheim, not Emil Durkheim, but someone else, Carl something Durkheim. Anyway, that with mythologies, symbols, these kinds of lessons that we're looking at, they have to be transparent to transcendence. You have to be able to see what they're getting at to get through to what the meaning is. So in a simpler way, you read Aesop's fables, you don't literally think that this animal said this or did this. You look for what the moral is, why the story's being told, and what you're meant to learn from it.
Right. So maybe those great scriptures and books like made the mistake of using humans in their stories.
We need animals.
Yeah, like basically Disney, you know. Like
yeah, that's what we need. Disney Jesus.
Yeah.
And he's a
so
donkey
you know
or
you
something.
can't take it seriously. Like make the Bible like a comic book with Donald Duck as a central character. And hopefully people would focus more on the message than the...
So we're going to have bondage Seneca next to Donald Duck nailed to the cross.
We're going to get banned from the internet.
We are. Don't take us literally, people. We're transparent to transcendence. Hashtag that shit. So at the end of the letter, following that making friends with yourself bit, Seneca emphasizing the point that if you live the truth, your truth is more convincing to other people. And he says, but what about riches? And he says, he also is great-souled who sees riches heaped up around him, and after wondering long and deeply because they have come into his possession, smiles and hears rather than feels that they are his.
I'm so ready for that lesson, to have so many riches that I then transcend them.
Yeah, it's sort of another transcendence. But I like that so I guess less about riches and more in terms of like not getting a crazy big ego. In the past, if people have told me that I really helped them with something or actually changed something in their lives, I'm like, oh, well, that's great, thanks. But it doesn't go into like my ego bank and inflate it. I'm just like, I'm glad that you feel that way. And I guess if we break it down, that's a lot of people have trouble accepting compliments, because until you can just be gracious because someone is trying to say something, they want to perform an act because they want to thank you. It's not up to you to then say no, yes, whatever. You're just like, thank you for sharing that with me. I appreciate that. And that's why I don't feel their victory is not mine. I don't possess it, but I can hear about it and be happy about it. Does you see?
I see.
Okay. It's a delicate balance of how to healthily relate to worth, and it could be material worth. I think some of probably the most healthy, successful people are not ones who are the Scrooge miser figure who are like, it's mine, I'm so scared it's gonna go. But the ones who are like, well, yeah, apparently I've got all this stuff, that's cool, I'm going for a walk now.
Yeah. Like, I'm quite hell-bent on becoming like disgustingly rich, but because I want to do cool stuff with it, and I want to enjoy myself with things that I know I would enjoy, like trips and building companies and doing fun things with friends, or like yeah. It's a tool. It's a vehicle to get me things that I want to do or achieve or play with. At no point do I actually care about the status symbol or about the intrinsic aspect of it. I don't really want a yacht because it's cool to have a yacht or anything like that, and I probably wouldn't even keep it for more than a day. But like, do I think it'd be awesome to take out my friends out to sea and like have a party? Yes. Can I do that now? Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah, but I think that takes us full circle to the point that like why you're doing something or trying to accrue something is the important thing to understand. For what purpose? Is it just because you want it for the sake of itself, sitting in the library wanting knowledge for the sake of itself? Well, it's pretty useless. It's just an ego tool. It's about how does it relate to life.
Yeah. For me, riches is a tool to do different things. Lots of play and being in a position to achieve some of the late stage ideas that I have about colonizing the universe or,
for example,
terraforming Mars, that kind of thing. You can't do it with $10. You need billions. But if I didn't want to do those things, I'd probably be content with a lot less than what I currently aspire to.
It's probably why I aspire to less. Just like my dream is I've got a small house next to the sea and it's got some books in it and I don't have to worry about money anymore and I can write some things.
Whereas my mega corporation has invented the hyperdrive.
I'll be there for you, buddy. I'll be there for you. Could you buy me a little house by the sea, please?
Done.
Thank you.
On which planet?
Maybe one on each so I can travel between them and enjoy the different waters and analyze them with a bucket. So I think we've reached full hysteria, so perhaps that's the end of the episode.
It might be the end.
Thanks everyone for listening. If you think that our mad ramblings are worth sharing with others, please do. We want to increase our wealth of people, not to possess them, but because we love them.
Wow. Do we add the tagline at the end? I kind of feel like that was a closing statement.
Be silly, be kind, be weird. Bye.